Welcome to Black Expat Stories, the show where we dive deep into the experiences of Black people across the diaspora who have boldly decided to immigrate abroad in search of a better life. I'm your host, Courtney Bowden, and I'm a Black American writer who also took the leap of faith and moved overseas. Coming to you from my home in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, I'm taking you on a virtual voyage to meet an extraordinary woman who's redefining wellness and travel. My guest is Desiree Parkman, a former Radio City Rockette and Broadway performer who traded the spotlight for a nomadic life of travel, movement, and culture. As the founder of Root and Align, Desiree is on a mission to prove that self-care can be a powerful, purposeful journey. In this episode, we'll explore Desiree's fascinating journey from the stage to the world stage. We'll talk about what inspired her to start Root and Align and discover how she's building a community through curated travel experiences that blend movement, self-care, and personal growth. Whether you're curious about nomadic living, seeking inspiration for your next chapter, or simply love stories of bold reinvention, this expat's journey will captivate you. Here's my conversation with Desiree. Hey, Desiree, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. Hey, Courtney. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well, and I've been anticipating this conversation for a while now. I know that we've had to sort of reschedule a couple of times, but I'm so happy that we're able to connect. And I often like to start off these conversations by asking my guests where they come from and what life was like in the States before you made the decision to move abroad.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I also have been looking forward to this. So, hey, everyone. I'm originally from a small town outside of Boston called Randolph, Massachusetts. That's where I pretty much grew up in the States. I've moved around a lot. I trained as a dancer. So as I got older, I moved to New York, spent about a decade and a half there dancing on Broadway. I also was a Radio City Rockette. And then I moved to LA, rinse and repeat. Anyone that's an artist knows that you kind of just follow that route of, where the art is and where you want to work. I started to transition into doing like management, agent, like working for an agency. I didn't love that. I think if I was going to do anything like that, it would be more management based because I really like to be more part of the development, and agents just want you to book jobs. That's it. So I just wanted to be a little bit more hands-on. I guess right before I moved out of the country, I was in Miami. So before I left, I moved into doing like event management. So I feel like everything that I've always done is still like in movement and production. So I was doing events for like nightclubs, restaurants, like booking large parties, dining, booking bands, creating poetry nights. We would do like soul sessions, Motown reviews. Like, I'm a showgirl, so I'm always trying to put on a show somewhere. I'm like, don't you want to do this show? Whatever. So, and that was great. I actually really loved being in Florida and being in Miami. I think that I didn't really have any particular like beef with the United States. Like, it's always been fine for me. I was able to do the things that I wanted to do there, which was be a performer and kind of just live out my dreams. I wasn't really like stuck in a job that I hated or anything like that. I'm free and I don't have kids. I'm not married. So it's pretty easy for me to move around. I think that I always wanted to live abroad. I've done a few tours that took me out of the country and gave me a glimpse of what it looked like to be in Europe, to go to Asia and things like that. And I think I just always felt that it's borderless, and that we should experience life outside of our own country, and I think also as a mover, as a dancer, and really like historian, that it was part of my duty to like go and see like how other people move.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you talk about, how you were able to just realize your dreams, but at the same time recognize that the world was so much bigger than the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I talk to people, they talk about how they've always kind of wanted to explore what it was like, what it's like outside the US. And traveling is just, that's one reason why I'm such a proponent of traveling, because it really it really exposes you to so much more. So when you decided to leave the US, what really motivated that? You were, you had, like you said, you realized your dreams. and you wanted to see the rest of the world. What motivated that, and where did you go first?
The motivation, I think, okay, so it was 2020. So if we go back, we know 2020 was the year that COVID came into our lives. But I already had on my vision board that I was going to leave that year, just picked it. Like I was just going to travel. So I think I had it for like October, and I had four places. I think it was like Costa Rica, Panama, and Guatemala, maybe just those three. COVID hit like in March, like right around my birthday, and everything was shut down. And I just kind of did a remix because those places you weren't able to actually get into. So I picked Mexico because I had been to Mexico quite a lot. I worked on a cruise ship before as a dancer. So we went to Playa del Carmen a lot, Cozumel, all of that. And although I wasn't like living there, I was there like every other week. And I thought it would be a soft landing. There was a lot of movement going on there, like online. You could see a lot of people were moving there. And I just figured, like, why not? Let's just do it. So for me, the motivation was like, I decided I was going to do it and I just did it. It was already a plan of mine. I didn't really like have any, I didn't really have a plan other than that I knew I wanted to leave. In the meantime, I had done my yoga certification and I started my business, Root and Align. So in between March and October, I was building that business and I was doing all kinds of like online yoga classes and like, really building a community around movement. So I just like took that and left. So that's the first thing. I ended up in Playa del Carmen. So I did like a month there just checking it out to see if I wanted to be there. And I went to Tulum. I think like after a few days in Tulum, I already knew that that wasn't where I was going to move and that Playa was going to be the place. And mostly because Tulum is so far out, like you can't really walk all around there, like you're kind of just either going to be on the beach or in the central area. What I love about Playa is that you can do both. Like you can be walking all around and you can go to the beach and you can hit all the things that you need to hit pretty much. It's a little bit more contained, and I think I felt a little bit more community in Playa as well. So that's it. Like, no big thing. I just jumped and did it.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you start off in Playa, what were some of your first impressions of this place? And what made you say, okay, I think that I can make this home? I know you mentioned the community. What were some of the other things that drew you here?
There was a little familiarity, but when I first came in, I think I went to Isla Mujeres, which is like a little like right off of Cancun. And immediately, like when I took the ferry, I think I laid my phone down and I left it there. And when I got off the ferry, somebody tapped me and they said, "Hey, you left your phone." So like that was one thing because I'm like, yo, like I just kind of like moved to a new country and I could have just been without my phone and that would have just been like horrible, right? Like that would have been a really bad first impression of, just an experience. So that just was like, wow, like there's an angel watching over me and like, fine. And then I think that weekend it was a hurricane. It was October. So there was a hurricane that weekend and the hotel that I stayed at, they were just so dope. Like it didn't hit that bad, but it was raining and it was windy and we were like right on the beach. But they fed us, they served up drinks. I was hanging out like just with the workers and stuff. And like there wasn't really anything to do except for just be there. And I think I just felt like, okay, this is really cool. Like I felt really taken care of. And so that was kind of like the first moment. And then when I got over to Playa, I feel like there was like another hurricane that came like a couple of weeks after that. And I was staying at, I was at Selena Hotel, same thing. But everything was really cool. Like they had a generator, like it just didn't feel like, I didn't feel unsafe. So I think that
Mm.
those first impressions, it's kind of like the worst things that could happen like those first couple of weeks. I think very early on, I met like a couple of women that I really got into flow with, and I'm still friends with them to this day. So that made it really easy. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just for me, it's just really kind of like a feeling about a place, the things that were happening. Things came, they seemed to come and flow pretty easily, like finding a place to stay. Like I found a really cool realtor that found like a really great apartment. And coming from Miami, I had like a really small studio that was downtown, but it was super expensive. And so I got this really beautiful, like huge 1 bedroom apartment that was just full of light. It was the perfect place to be starting an online fitness wellness business, So I started to do all my work in the house, able to create like really good videos there, have people come over to the house. Like it was great, And I mean, that was still in the early days, when COVID was going on. So there wasn't like a lot of things that we could just be out doing. So
Hmm.
having this really beautiful space to, I guess, land, it was great, and I just kept on pushing from there. And I stayed in that apartment for like 6 months.
That's amazing. So you mentioned throughout the course of your career, you traveled. And I'm wondering, how did your friends and family respond to your decision to ultimately move abroad? Were they surprised?
No.
Or did they kind of see this coming?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really like always announce like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move abroad. It was just something that I knew eventually would happen. But at this point, my family and friends, this has always been me. I mean, I've been dancing my whole life, and I'm actually 51 years old. So like for the most part of my life, people have always known me dancing and going away somewhere. So it wasn't like, they don't know where I am most of the time. So it wasn't like a big deal. I think most people just want to make sure that I'm safe, where am I going? What am I doing? But again, if you have any artist friends, they don't always know what they're doing or like what's going on. Like they're kind of just making it up as they go along because their main thing is their art. So like if they're not getting booked as a dancer, singer, or whatever it is they're doing, they're probably just doing some other thing to make money, like reception or virtual assistant or something like that. So yeah, so I didn't really get any pushback at all because this is just what I've always been doing. It's just in another country.
So yeah, this was a part of essentially your personality anyway.
Playa del Carmen just felt like a good place to start. Everything was there that I needed. I was close to everything, close to the beach. I had a really beautiful apartment that allowed me to start my business. And that's really all you need. I mean, at the time, we were still heavy into COVID. So I think everybody was just looking for a place that felt safe. But at the same time, even though we were in the midst of a crisis, you can still build and try to create something, a different life for yourself at any moment, whether there's a
Absolutely.
crisis going on or not. So I just kind of leaned into that.
I'm really glad you leaned into it because you mentioned your travel and wellness company, Root and Align. And I want to get into that because
Sure.
this season we are talking about spaces, the spaces that Black expats and immigrants create wherever we land. And you curate incredible travel experiences that integrate wellness. And so before we get into Root and Align, I want to understand, how has leaving the US and living abroad influenced your wellness journey and influence ultimately how you decided to run your company, Root and Align?
I've thought about this a lot as I started to transition from really where my whole life was involved in like entertainment to a certain extent. I think that there's always clues that you leave yourself on maybe where you're going to go in the future. So when I was in LA, which was in the, I don't know, 2010, 11 or something like that, I went to massage school. I really wanted to go to massage school. Like it was something that I just felt like I wanted to do. It also still is movement, you're moving energy around. And I remember at the time I was dating a guy and he did not want me to go to massage school because, he had this like weird ideological about it. And I'm like, okay, so like right off the bat, I'm just, going to be out here giving crazy massages. No. And you know what I'm talking about. So I was like, what about I'm just trying to help people, be more,
Right.
in their bodies and stuff. So needless to say, he didn't stay around for a long time. But I went to massage school and it was like 8 months every day of learning about the way the body is moving and how to push energy through Swedish massage, Thai massage, shiatsu. And it was one of the best things that I ever did for myself. And then from there, I started practicing massage. That was my like hustle that I did in between, working in my craft as an artist. I remember I always was like, oh, I just want to do sports massage and stuff. I don't want to like do any kind of spa stuff. But, when you say stuff like that, it always bites you back, right? Because
Right.
in the end, that's what I really enjoy doing, like spa stuff, sugar scrubs, and like, just all of that. So I think
Ironically
that,
enough, right?
yeah, I think internally I just really was always drawn to like healing arts. When I left LA, I kind of didn't do any body work for a while, but when I came to Miami, I was doing events and I would do like these. I had an event called Flesh Memory that I started. And the idea of Flesh Memory was all about like how we're all connected through, this tapestry of DNA and just being transported from place to place, right? As people of color. And so that at any time, you have this remembrance in your body. And so I
Hmm.
was just like doing different things. Like we would have poetry nights, we would have like live painting and all of that. And then one time I just was like, let's do Flesh Memory, like the self care edition. So I rented this really beautiful house and we had like aerobics in the water, we had African dance. We had like a little crystal thing. We had somebody talking about financial wellness. And I think that was really the picture of like the future of like what I wanted to do. But I think, whenever you're trying to change directions, people are like, oh, what are you trying to do? This is what you're doing. And for myself too, to kind of step out and be like, it's fine. You did all this stuff before. It's okay to move into a different direction. It's okay to want to do something different. And I think I always have been a person that wanted to connect people and help people. And that's kind of how it started, like
Right.
really it was already there. And I think when I got to Mexico, I think people have more time. I think there's a different mindset around wellness and self-care. I mean, even in Mexico, like families take their whole families to do cacao ceremonies and even to Moscow, which is the sweat lodge when you kind of sweat all it out. And they have like different plants to inhale, like eucalyptus, peppermint, rosemary. And I think it's a beautiful thing because they're really showing that you do need to take time to rest and to
Yes.
recalibrate your nervous system and all that. And so it's almost like it's embedded in the society to take this time. And so I just felt really like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And then I started to meet different people that were doing it, like some of my Mexican friends that were there. They just like, I think that the universe spirit always gives you what you need when you put yourself out there. And so I met a
Always.
really wonderful group. They're there now. It's called Avalon Riviera Maya. It's Avalon Experiences, and they do a lot of sound healing, meditation, this type of thing. And so I connected with them. Together we started to do these drum circles for full moon. And that came from a lot of times when you're creating space, you're not sure what that's going to look like until somebody asks for it. And I remember in one of the Facebook groups, somebody was like, hey, is there any drum circles? And I'm just like, yeah, that would be great if we had a drum circle, but like, where are the drums? So I was at like Lido Beach or something, and I just remember saying like, I wish I could find somebody that like was playing some djembe drums, some junjuns or whatever. And then I started hearing some drums, and they was sounding good too. So I started walking down the beach, and there they were. It was like 4 or 5 of them, and
Wow.
they became the first part of our full moon circles that we did. And we ran those full moon circles for like a year and a half every full moon. It started out we did new moon and full moon, but I felt more connected to the full moon and what that represent, and I wanted to bring people around that. And so that was a beautiful thing. We started out down by doing it like by the pier, like where the mermaid is down there.
Hmm.
And then it
Hmm.
moved up to Colosio because it got really crowded and we just needed more space and a little bit more privacy. But we would do that every full moon and start out with like movement and then just some freestyle, like with the drums, just be free, open up. And then we would wind down with like, I would make like a herbal tea, to represent like whatever moon it was. And then the other part of the group would do the sound. So they would have all kinds of sound instruments, bells and whistles and didgeridoos. And it was just really magic, So that was the beginning. And I think it really showed like what I could do and what I could
Yeah.
create. Just ran with it. That was the beginning of creating some experiences there in Playa. We started off doing that. And then I'm an herbalist as well, but I never was trying to do herbalism for like necessarily like women. Like I just was kind of like maybe like pain management or something.
Sure.
And I remember there was another thread that was asking if anybody had like yoni herbs and stuff, like to do yoni steams or whatever. And I had all the herbs, but I wasn't doing that. So I just said, yeah, I have them, meet me here and I'm going to sell them. So I just put them together, had a nice little bag. And then that became like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. So someone else kind of helped to bring it out of me, like, this is what's needed. You should do this. And I'm gonna call her out. You might know her, Obatalia. She was in Playa
Oh,
for quite some
yes.
time. Yeah. So shout out to the homie. She really encouraged me to, like, you should be doing this work. And we did like a community night of women at my apartment. We talked about why yoni steam is important for your womb and your uterus and just connecting with yourself and your body. We moved around, got the flow going, and then we all were in child's pose and just doing the steam. And I'm telling you, it was a beautiful night. There was probably like 15 women there, and we had food and just conversation, and it was really, really beautiful. Like, it was just really beautiful. And I think a lot of these things, true space just happens like organically in a sense,
It
and it's
does.
because of what's needed. You're filling a hole, you're filling something that wasn't there that needed to be filled. And that's kind of how I flow, like I really try to tap into maybe what's missing. And if I can be a part of fulfilling that, then I want to.
That's a beautiful thing about using our gifts for the uplift of our collective, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that we're having this conversation because you just said so many things about Playa, and this, of course, is where I'm based as well. And I believe this place is a portal. People come here and who stay here say the same thing. And when you talked about how you wished there were some drums and all of a sudden you started hearing drums, it literally happens this way
It
here.
is that way.
Um,
It's we call like a vortex. It gives you what
it
you need.
absolutely what you need. And one of the things that I have come to appreciate about this international living experience, specifically here in the Riviera Maya, is how much somatic healing I have done and how
Hmm.
much I underestimated it, right? Before I would get the occasional massage or, what have you, but now I get to experience things like drum circles and sound healing with the sound bowls and, all of these chakra cleansings and all of these various things. That's one of the reasons why I say that this expat immigrant experience, this unique experience for us, really fosters feelings of freedom, healing, and belonging. And healing it means more than just, getting off of your medications or healing certain physical ailments. Oftentimes, that healing is soul healing, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so, when you talk about movement and the importance of that, I want those who are listening and watching to consider that it is more than some yoga poses, more than the downward dog, more than stretching. Like, we have to live in this body, and moving it and
Sure.
using it and really moving our energy is important and integral to not just our healing, but our liberation. Would you agree?
Yes, that is so exactly. And this is why I do the work that I do, because I think that just as a society, we've been disconnected from our body. It's like, yes, we know that this is the body that we're in, but you don't really pay attention to it. There's no real reverence around it. There's no honoring of the work that it's done and continues to do for you. And especially as a woman, you know, you grow up, you're not really sure what's going on. You get to a certain age and you start your cycle, and it's like, here's these pads. Good luck. Don't get pregnant. But there's
Mm-hmm.
no reverence around that, like, kind of rite of passage. There's really no education about, like, really what goes on to your body and how beautiful it is. We're taught that it's our temple, but not to try to treat it like a temple, like, in so many ways. And movement is such a part of that, a celebration of yourself and of your body. And you don't need anything else to do it
Right.
other than your own body. I think that, life can be hard and you hold a lot of these emotions in your body. And if you don't have a way to release them, then they stay in there. And so you think you might be depressed or you have some other issue, and then you go and get meds, and then that kind of keeps you down a little bit more in your body instead of, like, letting it go. And not saying that maybe you do need meds, but you also need to move. And I think that once you start to move, you understand how much is trapped in your body and what it feels like to release. That
Yes.
is freedom and that is liberation. And once you feel the freedom in your own body, it then translates to your mind and, like, what else can I do? And so
Yes.
that's kind of the path that I've chosen as my life's work, is really showing I work with women, but some men too, but mostly women because I'm a woman, and I really want them to feel the magic of their own body. And a lot of times we just are not, like, it's like there's a disconnect. We're
Yeah.
working, we're doing all the things for everybody else, but we don't take time to be inside of ourselves and to really be like, this is how my body moves, this is how it flows, this is what it can do, and really own it and appreciate it, and really show ritual and reverence around it. So it's not just about yoga, because I mean, yoga is a lifestyle. So it's not the asanas, the poses are really like the least of the things. It's just the honoring of it, the intention of the things that you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that as a people, there is a segment of us who are awakening or returning back to the ways of our ancestors. All of this is ancestral. And
Yep.
unfortunately, it was stripped from a lot of us who lived under, colonial rule, wherever that may be, not just limited to the United States. And so I truly believe that liberation begins in the body. It begins in the body, because for so long, so many of us and our, those who came before us did not even have agency over their own bodies, right?
Right. And that's also stored, like, that's something that comes down, like, when you think about it, like, your grandparents, great grandparents, did they go get massages? Did you see them out doing stretching and yoga? Not really. But did they move? Yeah, because they worked hard. My grandmother used to
Hmm.
go fishing. I think that was her way of self-care, So
Hmm.
there are signs of some type of wanting to care for self. But in the midst of all the other things that were going on, it's not something that was very, like, thought about and intentional. And now we have the opportunity to do that because we are free,
Yeah.
freer.
Hey, friends, I want to take a quick moment to let you know that if you want to dive deeper and unlock more advice and insights on expat life, then I encourage you to become a friend of the show. You'll also access other behind the scenes and bonus content you won't see anywhere else. Just head over to blackexpatstories.com/support to upgrade your access. Now, back to the show. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Desiree, I don't know if you've come across this recently. There was a study or an article written that talked about how so much is trapped in our bodies, especially as Black women, and we experience so many different illnesses and ailments, immune compromisations, right? Because we tend to repress and hold on to things, and we feel like often we can't express ourselves and we can't live our truth and we can't be authentic and we can't move our bodies and be in our bodies in the ways that we need to be. So, what are your thoughts about that? Like, how do you believe movement allows us to express ourselves?
Yeah, I don't know about that article, but just, I mean, I've always been a mover. So in even my own studies, like, I know the connection between movement and your body. It's just when you feel tension, and then somebody starts to, you get a massage, you feel a little bit looser. You can do that for yourself through movement. How do I feel about it? I think you just have to move. I think that the evidence is in your own body. Your body tells you what it needs. We just have not been trained to listen to our own bodies. Other people don't listen to it. So it's like you're in a battle. So unless you've
Yeah.
been like exposed in a way where it's okay to move in this way. So all I can say about that is, like, when people come into my space, it's about giving you the comfort to feel safe to move, even in a subtle way. Like, even if it's just moving your shoulders or doing head rolls and putting on some music and, like, seeing how does your body move? Like, I think it just starts with like a re-education of like what it is, like assessing yourself. And
Hmm.
it is true. Like, there's a book called The Body Keeps Score, and it talks
Hmm.
about this. It talks about how we internalize things. Sometimes you just got to let it go, and you could act out in a lot of ways that could be detrimental to you, or you could just have a dance party, and you would
Right.
feel much better. So I think that it's something that is not from, I can't say it. You have to feel it, you just have to feel it to know. I think any part of what I do, like, we're gonna move our hips and do hip circles, even the guys. And I'm like, you guys need to move your hips too, right? It can't just be us. Like, we all need to move
Right.
our hips more because everybody holds stress. That's one of the main areas. And when you're talking about like the hips and your stomach, your gut, like, all of that is connected. So if you're tight in your gut and your groin area, it affects the rest of your body too. It affects your mental state and how you feel. You feel nervous and closed. But when you
Yes.
feel open, you're open to possibilities. You're open to seeing things differently because you're not closed in, like, you can feel it in your own body. And as much as I move, I still know when I'm feeling tense and tight too, because I'm overthinking something and it's in my body. So I have to just shake it out. Like, sometimes you just get out and just shake it out, and you can see, I mean, it's evident. People just need to move more. Even I'm home with my parents. My dad is 80, he's going to be 85. My mom is 76, I think. Anyway, they get out and walk every day. They do stretches. My dad does yoga. Like, he
That's
knows that he
beautiful.
needs to continue to move to stay young,
Yeah.
and thank goodness he's totally healthy. So, like, you got to get up and move, and you feel so much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for talking about that, the importance of that mind body connection,
Hmm.
because it is so important. Now, with your company Root and Align, your mission is to integrate movement and travel and exploration. And so I want to talk more about how you do that. You offer both solo and group trips.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know what sets your travel experiences apart, and how do you make sure that every journey fosters a deep sense of connection, personal growth, and wellness for those who attend?
Oh, that's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so root and align. I think, like anything, it's an expansion of my own journey and movement. I started off as a fierce technician. Like, I'm gonna dance you down, like, we're talking like Ailey, we're doing all the professional things. As I got older and started to transition, movement and dance became something different to me. Like, I wasn't out just trying to, like, see if my leg goes the highest. It was about how it made me feel. Movement always has been like church for me. I look around and I would notice that maybe a woman wasn't comfortable moving or didn't feel comfortable in her own body, and it just really made me want to create a space for that. I think that what makes me different is I really do feel like I can meet you where you're at. Like, people are always like, I'm not a dancer, I don't have a yoga body, whatever, all the excuses. But I'm like, listen, I don't care. I don't care. We're going to start right here. I can start from zero and take you where you need to go and give you the encouragement and the hand holding that you need so that when we're done, you can shake it down, whatever you want to do. And you have, like, just like a newfound confidence that always was there. I'm not doing anything that wasn't there. It's always inside of you, but it's buried under like life stuff. when I started implementing like programming around it, like doing the solo retreats came last. First, I was doing like just wellness retreats, and that was like, we come together. Really, the experience is not just a yoga retreat. It was like, oh, we have to get up sunrise yoga, whatever, because you've already been working every day, like getting up early. So why are you coming on vacation and still getting up early? We're gonna discuss and see like what works best for the group, and like ease into our day, because that's what we're trying to create is more freedom. Like I don't need, unless I love sunrise, I don't need to do that, right? To say that I'm
Right.
doing yoga, right? We can do
Right.
whatever. I think that my personality and just being down to earth, also just my background, like I've done this and I've lived this, and you can trust that I'm not going to hurt you. That's the one thing, because I'm still a practitioner of movement, and I know how the body moves. I know how it works. I know how to look at your body and really see how it can move in a safe way. So that's the one thing. I think I just make things really comfortable for people that they're able to open up, like immediately. Like we're going to work together, and then you're going to tell me, how you feel about it, and then the next thing like they're like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't do that. The next thing you know, they're in there, they're moving around. And I'm like, what? Or like even I'm always good, like when we do trips, I do like an impromptu photo shoot. So recently when we were in Cuba, we went to the beach, and I was like, okay, you guys, so like I'm casting for this new issue of Sports Illustrated-ish type thing. And so I need everybody to show up at this time. Like I just made it like it was a total like shoot. And they were like, what? Like what's going on? And I had them individually doing like just poses, like all up in the sand. And they were like, Desiree, I have sand everywhere. But they were working it out. And like even the ones that's like, I don't really like pictures. And I'm like, okay, but now you want your picture taken all the time. Like after that shoot, she was like, what about this? Does this look good? Should I do it like this? So I just want you to be yourself, like there's no pretension. Because I feel like it's about the access that you had and the opportunity. So if you never had the access to move your body or opportunity to be in a space where you felt comfortable to do so, well, now you do. My trips are really small and intimate. I'm not trying to have these big groups like 25, 30 people. No, mostly we were like 10 people. So I can have one-on-one time with everyone. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know like what your struggles were. Like, what's the first thing that you thought about your body? Like, when did somebody say something that made you feel a certain way? Or what's your deepest thing? Like, what do you see yourself? You want to be a burlesque girl? You want to be a rockette? Like, what's your thing that you want to be? You want to be like, a background dancer or Beyonce? Let's do it. Like any of that stuff, like whatever it is that you're thinking about in your imagination as far as how we move, we can totally do it, because I have access. I know how to make
Yeah.
those things happen. So I think that's what it is. I think every group is different. So I'm able to adjust like very quickly the energy of the group. I think that's one of the things that really sets me apart, because I feel like, I mean, it's a business, but with sisters too. Like, I really want the best for you, and it doesn't just end with this trip. Like, usually there's like a before we get together, like online, and create community online, so everybody gets to know each other, and
Yeah.
then we go on the trip, and then afterwards there's like a little bit of integration time there, and then I'm checking in. Like, if you said you wanted to do X, Y, and Z, I'm like, yo, what you do today? Did you go walk in, or how are you feeling? Let me send you this meditation or whatever. Like, that's what I'm building. I'm building this. So you want to be free, you want to expand in your body and use it. And I say movement, like I'm a movement specialist, because I'm moving your body, your mind, and we're going somewhere. We're doing it all.
I love that, Desiree. I'm so happy I'm so happy that you mentioned the community aspect of it, because I know some people who might be watching and listening may say, "Oh, I've been thinking about possibly going on a group trip, but I don't know the people on the trip, and how does that work?" And to know that you put these various things in place so that people can feel confident and comfortable moving forward and traveling, that seems like that's another thing that you do that sets you apart. So,
Yeah,
what are some
thank
of your
you.
favorite? Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of your favorite locations to curate trips around? I know that you mentioned Cuba. What are some other places, other destinations
Well,
that
so
hold
far,
special places in your
I
heart?
would say I really loved Playa del Carmen. That was because it was my first, and I loved the location that we were at, because we were right on the beach in these like cabins and stuff. and we did the Temascal. I always try to do like a local, like Mayan ceremony type of thing. So we did the Temascal, which is basically like you're in, like it's supposed to be like you're returning to the womb. So it's kind of like an igloo type of thing, and it gets really hot in there, and you're steaming. And you're just kind of like breathing in, and then the shaman takes you through different scenarios, like four doors open, and it kind of takes you back to your childhood, talking about the future and your own plans and things like that. I don't really have a favorite because I love them all. But Isla Mujeres is another place that we went, which is the island of women. And I feel like I love that one because it's like, when your vision comes together and you really see it like laid out. That was when it was like the second one that I did. So that felt really good. I don't have a favorite one because it's always changing, because I'm trying to connect to the spirituality of the place, the people. So like in Guatemala, that was a different experience because all the other ones were like beach ones. We right on the beach. In Guatemala, it's like more of a ground in nature, because even though the lake is there, it's more about hiking, and it's just like a different little vibe there. I really like that too. And I think it depends on the people too, because not everybody wants to be hiking and kind of be in
Right.
that type of environment, but some people really love it. Like if you like bird watching and being out on the kayaks and all that, then maybe that would be for you. A lot of the solo retreats were in Guatemala, which was perfect because they were just kind of like in their own little bird's nest. Nobody bothered them. And we just worked together one on one, really intense, but still have time to have fun. I'm about balance too. So I will say this, even though we're doing wellness and everything, but like we're going to, cheers. It's about balance, right? So yes, we're going to have fun. It's not just like yoga 24/7 and all that. Like, cause you're a person, like these things are meant to be sustainable. So like we're just incorporating some best practices so that you can like calm down and sit down for a minute. But, we're having a welcome drink. We're going to eat some really good food, like it's going to be fine, My
Yeah.
favorite place, I don't have a favorite place. I like them all. And there's going to be more.
Okay.
Like so far, usually the retreats happen because of where I am. So when I was in Mexico, everything kind of happened there. So Playa del Carmen, Isla Mujeres. I went to Guatemala, so I changed, everything was over there. And then I branched out for the Cuba trip because I always loved Cuba. I had already been there before. I wanted to start doing more and infusing more of the culture part of my business, because that's also part of my background. And that was just amazing and blew my mind away at what was possible. And then just the connection to the people, more dancing, and next
Yes,
year we're going to do
Cuba, I'm
Belize
sure.
and Brazil. So I'm just like, I love all of it, like all of it, all the places.
Now, I know that you mentioned you choose the locations based on where you are in your life. Are there any other locations on your radar? Because I know you mentioned like Brazil, and I know that there's samba, and there's just so many different forms of movement. What other locations are you eyeing for to sort of bring about another kind of movement, or expose folks to another kind of movement?
Oh, girl, don't get me started. Okay, so yes. So, for example, when we're in Cuba, Cuba's known for like rumba. That's their big dance there, the rumba, and of course salsa. But they also have the Orisha dances, which is the folkloric Afro-Cuban dances. So you're learning the dances of the Orishas, like Oshun, Yemaya, Oya, et cetera, et cetera. So that's excellent, great. Brazil, we're going to Bahia, Salvador da Bahia. So there you could study like capoeira. They also have
Mm.
their own style of folklore dance. Now, yes, samba in Rio, you would do that. You could do that there too. I think for me, we always will do those like social dances, but the undercurrent of like the folkloric dance is what I'm trying to tap into. So that's why we're going to be going to Bahia as our base, and then just like do a day trip or something to Rio to kind of like see that. Same thing with Belize. So Belize has the Garifuna people that are there in the Hopkins area. Those are the people that came over from like Haiti and St. Vincent back in the 1700s. They settled there and in Honduras and in Guatemala and Livingston. So they have their own folkloric dance. So everywhere we go, we have our own kind of movement, like that is the beginning of culture, is like how we spoke to each other through music and through movement. And I like to think that I'm continuing the work of my dance ancestors, Pearl Primus, Catherine Dunham. Both of them were like dance anthropologists that studied in. Catherine's work was in Haiti. Pearl was more like in Senegal, Ghana, and bringing that work back and sharing and creating like works around that. I'm not sure like where mine goes, but right now it's really just about exposing people to this and using that as a way to connect. So in Cuba, for example, even though we learned a lot of the Orisha dances and stuff like that, and we had a workshop where we did like rumba and salsa. But then when we had our community dinner, which is the way I end all my trips, is that we have a community dinner with like all of the vendors and everybody comes over. So we were doing like the electric slide and like cha-cha slide, all that kind of stuff, and teaching them, and so that's just the way that I communicate. I feel like
Yeah.
that's just the way that I communicate. So, but on the flip side of that, because, I'm doing like Afro diaspora travel and that's all great, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't take you to Ireland and we study like some river dance type music, like, and do some clogging and stuff. It doesn't mean that one day I would have like, you want to be on Broadway trip where we just be somewhere and I teach you like, Rockette stuff and you get to perform or something like that. Like, it's whatever. Like we can do anything.
And that's the beauty of dance and movement, right? It's
Yeah.
universal. It's
Yes. Yep.
universal.
But for now, I think in this future part, my big trip next year for 2025 is Brazil, and then we'll do Cuba a couple of times. I'm going to Trinidad for my first carnival. I've never done carnival before. And
Okay.
so I'm going to go and have my own little baby fete, and kind of see like if that's something that I would like to organize, like people that maybe you don't want to be all up in it, but just around it, like do a couple of fetes and, like that. So I'm going to see. But yeah,
Please
I
keep
just
me updated because I've always wanted to go to Trinidad for carnival, and I've
really, well,
always
I
wanted to
will.
play mass.
We'll talk about it because I am like, it's kind of like if anybody want to meet me there, they could, but I'm not like advertising it as a group trip yet because I want to kind of see it. But
Sure.
yeah, like I kind of just see like what feels good. I really want to do Egypt again. I did it as by myself, but I want to do like a return to Nubia type of vibe, and we like really be all in our goddess with like belly dancing and all that. So yeah, like anything. Like, and again, all of this is really fun for me because at the end of the day, it's still production. I still am producing like this experience. And one of the girls that came to Cuba, she was like, "Oh, I love it because you're always about the shenanigans." Because yeah, we're gonna dress up and I'm gonna have us making a video or doing
Right.
something like that, right? Like, come on, like, get it, let's do it, And they were just laughing. I was
Yes.
like, "Yep, call time is 5 o'clock. Please meet me on the roof." You know?
And I'm sure that allows so many people to tap into their inner child. Because how many
Yes.
of us grew up dancing in front of the TV or, watching Soul Train and just like moving or going to the skating rink or
Yeah,
having
all of
dance
that.
offs with our
hmm
cousins and all
And
of
it
that.
doesn't
That
have
just
to
kind of brings
stop.
it
I mean,
back.
I feel like, when you're young, people are always like, "Oh, you can be anything you want to be," until you say you want to do something different. You know what I mean? Like then it's like,
Right.
"Oh, really? That's what you want to do?" Because, when they say, "Oh, you can be anything you want," they think you're going to be like, "Oh, just, traditional lawyer, doctor." And that's all fine, but like what if you want to be an artist or if you want to be a photographer, or it usually has something to do with art type of thing. But as you can see, art saves lives, man. It's the great equalizer. It connects so many people. And like you said, I mean, most people in their childhood have some recollection of, they were in some play or a theater or whatever, but it's healing. I mean, now, I mean, it's grown. I mean, now you actually can get a prescription to go take dance class or something like that. Like that's the next thing now is like RX, where you can get
Right.
prescriptions for these things. And it's always been that way, dance therapy, drama therapy. They're going to put names on it and a sticker price. But at the end of the day, it's movement.
And it has always been integral to our well-being. And thank you
Yep.
for reminding us of that.
Yes.
So, Desiree, we know that health is often considered the greatest wealth. For those who might feel like an international getaway is beyond their current means or they're not able to swing it right now, what kinds of strategies and advice can you offer to help them incorporate movement as a wellness practice into their daily lives, no matter where they are?
Sure. Yeah. So I do before I have some individual clients that I work with online and we talk about, getting back to the basics. So I just try to tap into like what are the things that you used to love doing? Like did you like playing tennis or basketball or what was it? And then they'll say, "Oh yeah, I used to do this." Well, then you should do that. That's what you should do now. You should go find somewhere to do that. Or what's something that you always wanted to do? So one of my clients, she always wanted to take ballet class and she's a lawyer and she lives in Boston. And I said, okay, so we're gonna go and get you signed up for some adult ballet classes at Boston Ballet. They have like a really great adult division there. And so she signed up and she was all geeked. And so the rest of us were like, okay, so, you got to get a ballet sweater. You got to get the leg warmers. Like we had her all dressed up because, if you're going to go all the way in. So I was like, I had the whole thing. I put like a little Pinterest board of all the things that she can have, like a ballet skirt. And she had the best time. And it was really great because her job is really stressful. And so she started going like once a week and it was beautiful. So I really try to keep people, it's not that hard. We make things a lot harder and we overthink it, thinking that it has to be this way. It doesn't. You can go outside and do like a 10-minute walk, you can jump rope. You can go take a line dancing class. You can watch something on YouTube and follow along with that. But it just needs to be enjoyable if it's going to be sustainable, Like, what
Absolutely.
do you like doing? Like, Courtney, what do you like doing? What's something that you love doing?
I love salsa. I love salsa dancing. And
Right. And
so,
so I know that they have salsa at the at the gymnasium like
yep,
once or twice a week, for like $2. So, you make a commitment to yourself and you show
right.
up and you do that, and then I check on you, so I say, "Hey, did you go and do that?" And if you didn't, no, that's fine. That's cool. Let's do it next week. Like we're not going to beat ourselves up because we didn't go and do something that we said, but just knowing that this is good for you and it's something that's going to make you feel better. And then sometimes as far as like just having a time for yourself, I call it like a 5 for 5, like getting up in the morning and take like 5 minutes to like write something down, 5 minutes to just breathe, 5 minutes to just meditate, whatever, stretch, and then go on about your day. You can do it in
Yes.
the morning or at night. That can be really helpful. And then to top it off, there's nothing wrong with like going and if you can book like a hotel somewhere nearby, book a spa day, get a massage, or even just at home, giving yourself a bath, putting all your little flowers in there, putting some essential oils, your bubble bath, get some nice music, like it can be basic but
Yeah.
still very beneficial, and very transformative. It doesn't have to be a flight and a whole trip. Like, yeah, great. You should also do that too because you deserve it. But you can also recreate a lot of that stuff on your own. And it really does mean a lot. And it shows that you're creating ritual around yourself.
Yes. Which is so important, and it's healing, it's transformative.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears and get your thoughts about this emerging migration movement, which has now been called the Blaxit movement. What are your thoughts on it, especially during this crucial election season and year, especially for those who are in the United States?
I think people have always moved around. I just think that it's happening at a faster speed and more people are moving abroad. I mean, my parents migrated from the South up to the North. Other people went west out to California. Some people went to Chicago, but mostly you meet somebody in Chicago or in Michigan where you're from. They're probably from Alabama, Mississippi, just like how you said your mom was, right?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
think that for us, our migration is happening outside of America. I think it's just inevitable. I feel like as people of color, we're global citizens and really we can go anywhere and be anywhere. I think that there's something like a longing, a return to home, wherever that is, like seeking, searching for something else. And why is this the it and be it of everything? I mean, we're
Yeah.
taught like, yeah, it's so great. Okay, well, there's other places that are great too, not just your place, like we can be other places, we can all of these things can be true.
Right.
It's just that when you break away, you're breaking away from everything you've ever been taught about what you got to do and who you're supposed to be. But people have always been nomadic. I learned that word in like fourth grade, and I already knew that that's what I was going to be. Is that a job? I want to be a nomad because I'm like, that sounds so cool. Like if we
I
talk
love
about the
that.
Indians and how they were, they would move from season to season, from place to place, and I'm like, yo, this sounds really good, okay? And you mean I can take all my stuff and just move over here, right? And then you be there for a little while, things change, and then you go over here to follow more buffalo or where the fish are. Like, doesn't that seem like the natural way of things? So I
Yeah.
just feel like this is a return to, like you said earlier, like our ancestral roots, and I don't know where it's going to lead and go, but I like it. I like what's happening. I mean, aren't we fulfilling maybe the dreams of Marcus Garvey or some of the other, I mean, like these are seeds that also were laid out for us that may have not come into fruition, but here we are. So it's welcome, and I think that if you don't like where you are, then leave. And if
Mm,
you don't like it there, you can leave and go somewhere else. You're not a tree. You can just go.
you can move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get DMs all the time from folks who have moving on their mind. They're considering it and moving abroad specifically. So I always like asking my guests, especially those who are well traveled like you are, what are some of the first steps someone should take if they're considering a move abroad? And how do you believe they can best prepare themselves for that transition?
Yeah, that's a question I see a lot. And then I always think to myself, like, wow, I don't know. Because you need to just go ahead and do it. Okay. But I also don't have a lot of stuff. I don't have kids to think about. It's just me. Okay. So I guess I can just speak to that. I think if you're thinking about leaving, you just really need to have a plan of how you're going to support yourself. One, that's the main thing. Like, how you're going to make money. And once you know that, then you just pick the place and maybe you go and check it out for like a month or something, find an Airbnb, you know, and you go.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I don't have any real philosophical, like, first you need to save up $1 million. No, you
Right.
don't really need to. Because I feel like whatever you were doing to survive here in the States, like you could do half of that and be okay somewhere else, like it depends on where you move to. But
Sure.
I think that you got to work on your mindset because your mind is really what's going to take you there. If your mind is set to go, then you're going to go and you're going to figure it out. So yes, I started off like, you want yoga, who wants yoga packages? You want yoga, who wants to do yoga? Drum circle, like, you do a few things. You have to think about what your gifts are and then monetize them. I mean, that's basically if you're not a person that has a job that's digital, that you can work from anywhere, then you're probably entrepreneurial. So if you're entrepreneurial, then like, what does that look like? And what are your means? I am a minimalist in the sense of like, yes, I'm a pack rat and I have a lot of stuff in that. Like I carry around books. So I'm trying to get a
Me
Kindle so
too.
that I don't have to be a library anymore.
Yeah.
But like, I don't need a lot to be happy living, like I'm cool just making if I'm near the beach, I got a fruit stand over here. I'm good. Like some local food. I'm straight. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to live I'm not trying to live like I'm in Miami or anything like that because I didn't want that. If I wanted that, I'd still be in Miami. So I think
Right.
that the first thing is to really check in with your mindset and and really be confident that you can make it happen. And also, it's like the saying, like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. That's just in general in life, like if you're life you can life anywhere. You know what you have to do. You need to find a way to make money, get a place to stay, feed yourself. That's really the basic needs. And then from there, your life will get exponentially better anyway, because you're not going to, you won't have all the stress of having to probably work 2, 3 jobs and all this other stuff. So
Right.
that's
Right.
really, I just think that if you want to do it, you should just make the way to do it. Bet on yourself, know that you have the skills and that you're going to be taken care of. Like when you take that push out, then you will be supported, but you need to figure out how you're going to make money.
That's great perspective. Thank you, Desiree. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And I'm sure that so many who are watching and listening and will watch and listen will appreciate that perspective as well. And this has been an amazing conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed learning about your journey abroad and how you've been able to use those gifts that you were talking about
Thank you. It's a
for
pleasure.
healing and for helping people transform the way that they see themselves and the way that they live in their bodies. So, how can our audience stay connected with you and learn more about Root and Align, and maybe join one of your curated trips?
Yes, I'm actually booking for Cuba in January for the jazz festival. That's going to be really hot. So if you really like jazz music, along with all the other stuff that I mentioned, you'll want to hop on. So I'm in the middle of like a rebrand with my website. So everything is on Instagram. So my Instagram is at Root and Align, and in the bio, that's where all the links are for all the trips and how to, get on my mailing list and, book a call if you want to talk about moving or anything like that. So Instagram is kind of like my place right now. So Root and Align.
Great. Well, I encourage anybody who feels like they need a getaway where they can move, be free in their body, learn how to be more free in their body with the help of Desiree and your expertise, to definitely check out Root and Align. Again, Desiree, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the
Thank you,
show, come on Black
Courtney.
Expat Stories. I look forward to keeping in touch and to joining one of those curated trips one
Yes,
of these days.
ma'am. You got to get on out here so you can see what it's all about in person. And thanks again for having me. And it's so good to connect with you after like all these years of kind of floating around internet space.
Absolutely. I always love connecting with folks that I come in contact with. And that's one of the gifts of this expat lifestyle is
Yeah,
ability to make all of these connections. And
for
so,
sure.
Desiree, please keep up this amazing work. It is so necessary. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and watching as we continue exploring the journeys of Black expats finding freedom, healing, and belonging across the globe. Are you feeling inspired to embark on your own expat journey? Hit subscribe to join the conversation and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Black Expat Stories for sneak peeks and more expat insights. Now, if these conversations resonate and you want to help this platform grow, then I encourage you to become a friend of the show. Not only will you enjoy early ad-free access to new episodes, exclusive bonus content, and behind-the-scenes glimpses, you'll also be supporting our mission to amplify the voices of the pioneers at the vanguard of the next great migration. Just head to blackexpatstories.com/support to join our growing community. However you choose to connect, keep your passport ready and your dreams without borders. Until next time, I wish you peace, love, and passport stamps.